say is, if we're a land that in God we trust, and Jesus says, let the children come to me, wouldn't you agree that we need to open our arms to Mexico?
No. People who talk about this don't even talk in terms of if this, then that. They talk about it as, this is how the world ought to be. Well, heck, I can think of all kinds of things of how I think the world ought to be. But unfortunately, most of those things involve a cost, a trade-off.
I asked him about his own political evolution.
So then what was your wake-up to what was wrong with that line of thinking?
Facts.
To her supporters, to the supporters of Bernie Sanders, to young Americans, what would you say?
I would say get some facts first, know what you're talking about before you start spouting out this kind of stuff.
A recent YouGov poll found that 19% of millennials, 1 in 5 young Americans, holds a favorable view of communism.
Yes.
Now let me quote one of these young millennials, a new member of Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who represents the Bronx, not all that far from where you grew up. Quote, "To me, capitalism is irredeemable." Close quote. Tom Sowell replies,
To me, she's irredeemable. One of Barack Obama's great gifts is the ability to say things that are absolutely absurd and make them sound not only plausible but inspiring.
Thomas Sowell is an American economist, social theorist, and senior fellow at Stanford University Hoover Institute. Born in North Carolina and grew up across the way, Harlem, New York. He went to Stuyvesant High School and had to drop out due to financial issues and enrolled in the Marine Corps during the Korean War, returned home and graduated from Harvard University, then earned his master's degree at Columbia U, followed by a doctorate in economics from the University of Chicago. After many years of serving in many universities as a professor, from Cornell to Stanford, he has dedicated his life to history, economics, political science. As of 2022, Thomas Sowell is the author of more than 45 books. Let's continue learning and see a few more clips of Thomas Sowell. Editor, roll the clips. Fair use.
There are a great many unemployed. One of the reasons being that we've had the kind of economy we've had for some time now, and all attempts to get the inflation out of it are likely to have these adverse effects. It's tragic. However,
should we warn her that you wrote a book about Say's Law?
Well, no.
No, I am concerned about what we do for people who are presently in a very disadvantaged position because of what's happened on the economic front.
We try to remove as many of the barriers as possible that have put them in that position.
And you think the barriers that have put them in that position are, for example, a minimum wage law?
Minimum wage laws, labor unions, occupational licensing.
Would you abolish labor unions? Huh? Would you abolish labor unions?
You don't have to abolish labor unions. I'm saying that if you're asking me what are some of the things that have done it, I'm giving you some of the things that have done it. Blacks were well represented in many occupations, skilled occupations in the South 2 or 3 generations ago to a greater extent than today, because 2 or 3 generations ago, those industries were not unionized. Construction, railroads, just classic examples. When we have this so-called Philadelphia plans to get blacks into the construction industry, I mean, it would be laughable if it weren't so tragic. Blacks were heavily into the construction industry before it was unionized.
What are the nature of those wounds?
Crime.
No.
The disintegration of the family. The disintegration of the educational system. And it's not going to matter. We'll be like the man who gained the whole world and lost his soul.
Is there a common root to all of those problems, other than you heard them from the anointed class? I mean, is there something? Is it big,
yes.
Is it big government? Is it big government? Is that what?
No. It's the notion that ordinary people cannot be trusted to make the decisions that they've been making, but these must be preempted either by judges in the case of crime, by the schools taking over the indoctrination of other people's children behind their back and against their protests, or what was the other one? The family, putting taking money from the taxpayers and subsidizing behavior, as well as encouraging it and legitimizing behavior.
The whole notion that the black family has always been disintegrating, that is nonsense. That his studies go up to 1925. The great bulk of black families were intact, two-parent families up through 1925, and going all the way back through the era of slavery. So it is now only within our own time that we suddenly see this inevitable tragedy, which the welfare system says it's going to rush in to solve.
You use evidence. Tom Sowell is a man of the constrained vision through and through and through, correct?
Yes.
No.
Yes, part of a vanishing breed, I might add.
So when you were a Marxist, the notion, explain that, because the Marxism.
Well, but no, you see,
yeah, so that's complicated.
Even when I was a Marxist, I had the same intellectual standards.
Right.
And that's what eventually led me away from it.
Oh, I see.
In other words, I hadn't done all the research. I hadn't gone around the world
looking for evidence.
Yes.
Okay. So
socialism is a great idea. That does not mean it's a great reality. One of the things that disturbs me tremendously is about this enthusiasm for Bernie Sanders and socialism at a time when people are literally starving in Venezuela, an oil-rich country. And they're breaking into grocery stores to try to get food, and they're fleeing to neighboring countries, most of which are not all that prosperous themselves, but at least you don't starve to death in them. And none of that makes a bit of difference. Mm-hmm. I don't think most of these people who are out there cheering for Bernie Sanders have given a thought to Venezuela.
Society is not supported except perhaps by you. Would you back that phrase?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're talking about the failures of the other parts of society. What the welfare system and other kinds of governmental programs are doing is paying people to fail. Insofar as they fail, they receive the money. Insofar as they succeed, even to a moderate extent, the money is taken away. This is even extended into the school systems, where they will give money to schools with low scores. Insofar as the school improves its education, the money is taken away, so that you are subsidizing people to fail in their own private lives and become more dependent upon the handouts.
We have expectations built in today about the quality of life, the quality of job, the level of income for which one expects in return. Why? Because we look at the level around us that it takes us to have a fairly decent level.
No, that's not why. I may have all sorts of expectations. The question is, what can I do? If someone else is subsidizing my expectations will be far higher. Insofar as the Center for Advanced Study was subsidizing my expectations a few years ago, I refused to work at UCLA for the normal full professor's salary. Why should I, when I can get the same money for being at the Center for Advanced Study with no hours, no duties, and no classes?
Hey guys, it's Jose, your regular Joe Blow, keeping an eye out and my ears open, as always, to excel and prevail. My number 4, Thomas Sowell. I've been reading so many of his books and watch his lectures and the videos and the clips. Love his quotes. It's an honor to have him even on my list. So many accomplishments can't fit them on my list. So let's just see him in action. Grab a pad, start screenshotting, and write them down. All the gems, the gold nuggets he gives from working and learning from scholars like Milton Friedman, George Stigler, and Walter E. Williams. But I digress. Let's just watch one more clip. Fair use.
Even in a high crime area, the great majority of the people are not criminals. And so if you can just put your hands on those people who are raising all the hell in the community and take them out of circulation, the crime rate drops.
People say there's undue emphasis on African Americans for committing crimes. Is that true? Ed Koch wrote in a column here that the population is 25% African American in New York. 62% of the crimes are committed by African Americans. Is that and he says
I haven't checked these figures, but throughout the world, this is not unusual. Throughout the world, people are disproportionately represented in all kinds of different things, and it's true obviously in basketball. It's true in all kinds of other things. The main thing is not to keep people out of jail because they're one race or another, because when you do that, the people who are going to suffer the most will be the black community.
Where are you on affirmative action?
Against.
Why?
Well, you can only do one of two things. You can either just judge people individually, or you can judge them by groups. This whole notion that you're going to come out with a compromise, I would defy anybody to come out with a compromise on that. You're going to do one of those two things. Now, you can pretend to be doing other things, but that's all you're going to do. Those are the only two choices you really have in the end. Again, the people who are the anointed think of this as a symbolic issue, and they want to be on the side of the angels. They don't ask, what are the consequences? Now, I've studied affirmative action programs around the world. One of the consequences is that those people who are more fortunate in the group that has the preferences, those people take the lion's share of the preferences. Very often, those at the other end of the scale, the poorer people, actually fall further behind. That's true of blacks here. It's true of Malays in Malaysia. It's true of various groups in India. You know, now, when I started teaching in the early 1960s at the Douglas College, I read up on all the stuff about new teachers, you see, and how it's hard to get the respect of the students, particularly if you're not much older than they are, and I looked younger than I was. And so I worried about that, you see, and I walked in that room the first day, and there was instant respect. And it sort of took me aback. And I realized, no, they're saying, look, this guy, I was the first black male to teach there. This guy must be something else, you know. Go forward now, 10 years. By this time, I've completed my degree. I've written my books, journal articles, all the whole thing. I'm now teaching at UCLA, and students will come up to me at the end of the term, and they'll say how much they like the course and all that. And somewhere in the course of that, there'll be a slip up, and they'll let it out that they were quite surprised that the course was as good as it was. And one of the things that struck me even before the end of the term, one kid came to me one day, and he had a passage in the book he was having trouble with. And he said, can you tell me what this means? And I explained to him what that passage meant. He said, are you sure? And I said, yes, I wrote the textbook. And he looked in the front, and he's really embarrassed. You know? But this is what affirmative action has done, you see.
So you can't see any positive
I'm sure.
contributions to affirmative action.
I don't doubt
that in fact it increased the pool, as you know, is frequently used. The expression of what affirmative action can do is increase the pool of
I don't know what that means, and I've never had anybody explain it to me. I've studied affirmative action in this country, in India, in Malaysia, you know, in Sri Lanka, in Nigeria. They have some version of it in Israel.
Guys, I have nothing more to say but to love, embrace, respect, and acknowledge Thomas Sowell. Sir, full salute, and thank you for your service. Guys, stay tuned for number 5. As always, thank you for staying with me to the end. Stay free.